there's other people who are more on my path, and the friends you lose, you gain new friends, right? And so that fear was the hardest decision that I've had to overcome in my entrepreneurial career. And I think of all the split paths in my life, that was the one that if I had many timelines or many universes that existed, that was probably the one that is the most likely that I would not have parted from. So I think in like 90% of universes that Alex Ramosi exists, I'm just a consultant somewhere. And so I would encourage you, if you do feel that, you're not going to die. Like you won't die, and you might just live.
It's so interesting because I think everything you've said is just absolutely spot on. But you're right in where you say that if you'd asked an audience member listening now
Yeah.
why they haven't started yet, they wouldn't say fear.
Yeah.
They would say, I haven't got the X,
Yeah.
I haven't got the Y. But actually, it is such an emotional thing. And we don't talk about that enough because uncertainty is, humans seem to be allergic to uncertainty and they'd rather the certain misery of their current situation typically than uncertainty.
And I think, and I used what I consider a very non-palatable word of coward purposefully, because no one wants to say they're afraid, because if you say you're afraid, then it means you're a coward. And I think that it only means you're a coward if you allow that fear to change your behavior in an aversive way, as in it not towards what you want.
Mhm.
And so, the inverse of that, many people have heard it: courage is not acting without fear, but despite fear. And I think that when you act, when you allow fear to change your behavior the wrong way, that is when you can give yourself that title of coward. And I think that that is a title that I have feared my whole life. And that label is almost, I'm more afraid of that label
Mhm.
than the label of failure. I'd rather be a failure than a coward.
Is there a framework for knowing when to quit?
Mm. So I think there's like the math behind it. And the math I think is pretty straightforward. So like, when do you quit your business? I like, you've saved up 3 to 6 months of personal savings, number one. Number two is that you have started something, because nowadays in the digital age, you can begin a business on the side that can generate income. And that income, in the small amount of time that you're not working, replaces or at least matches the existing income you have from your current job. And you've been able to do that or demonstrate that income for like 3 to 6 months. If you do that, that's a very like math way of approaching it. That also is basically never the reason that people aren't quitting their job, right? Like that's a really set. Like I have backlog. I've matched my current income with my part-time work, and if I just put my full-time work, I would probably make more. Very reasonable, but never actually the reason that people don't do it.
I was thinking about the two sort of reasons why someone might quit something or feel like they want to quit. And one of them is clearly because it's hard. And that's obviously not reason enough to quit. And then there's another one which you were speaking to there, which is it's not moving me towards a meaningful goal,
Yeah,
irrespective of how hard it is. Like a marathon,
yeah,
you're raising money for a charity you care about. It's hard, but you
yeah,
don't quit.
yeah,
And then there's maybe if you're running a marathon for no apparent reason, there was no charity, there was no one watching, there was no like fitness benefit, then that's a good, I guess, moment to consider quitting. My story mimics yours in a way that I didn't realize.
mm,
I didn't realize you went through a similar thing in terms of the parents' disownership,
yeah,
um, no real great option
yeah.
to flee to, but feeling like the current path that would have led me to be, I don't know, a business management student was significantly worse on balance than taking the risk. But I think maybe a point of distinction is it didn't, I was so naive that it didn't feel like a risk.
Yeah. So what's really interesting about that is the guarantee. And so a lot of times we don't look at what I call the don't, which is like the alternate path. And so if I had played out my existing path, I had a guarantee of outcome I didn't want. It was just at a delay. Whereas here, there's a chance that I can make it. And so one of the final kind of frameworks for making the decision was guarantee bad, chance at good. And I was like, well, I might as well take a chance. And I strongly encourage thinking about playing it out. And so what I mean by that is like, I think fear exists in the vague, not in the specific. And so when you say, I'm going to quit my job, and then what if this doesn't work? I'm going to failure, tons of fear. If I say, I'm going to quit my job and then I'm going to try and start a business, and if the business doesn't work, I'll probably have a compelling story that I could tell for business school if I wanted to show that I had some entrepreneurial slant. In the meantime, I could use that experience plus my job experience to probably get another or maybe even better job in the meantime and match or supersede my existing income. And the actual loss would be maybe the savings that I had saved up. But if I'm younger or I haven't made as much money as I want, then that's never been the amount of money that would be material anyways on the grand scheme of what I would like to make. And in terms of living situation, I will, worst case, go back to my parents' house with my tail between my legs or sleep at a friend's couch because I have enough people that would be willing to put me up in a garage if I had to. And so it's like, okay, so my actual worst case scenario is just like I have a cool story and maybe some shame is self-inflicted because it's not like no one else cares really. But it's self-inflicted shame and maybe a detour or a different story that I have to tell later on in my career. Not as much fear there, right? But like the first one, like I'll fail, everyone will hate me, and I'll die.
The first one sounded like it was written by your like amygdala, like the fear center. And the second one was pure like prefrontal cortex. It was all logic.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, as you're going into that decision, obviously fear is going to lead it. So of
Yeah.
course you're going to go for option one, where you just
Yeah.
think about the downside.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a practice that allows you to get into your prefrontal cortex, into logic.
And I think so I think you nailed it and said it way better than I did. But I think going from vague to specific basically disengages your amygdala because it can't reason the logic chain of causation and causality of what's going to happen next in a chain of events.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get into the specific of it, all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm not going to be homeless and then shamed and die. I might live in inferior living conditions for a short period, which, by the way, when you're later on in your life, you'll look back and think of as the good old days because I can't believe I was couch surfing. I was pursuing my dreams, right? It's only like in the moment that it feels bad. When you look back, like even I find this hilarious. Like how long after you do something embarrassing is it funny? Right? Like at some point for almost all of us, with enough time, the shameful experience becomes funny. And so if it is going to become funny eventually, it might as well become funny now.
Yeah.
And so it's just like pulling the time horizon up. But all of that's prefrontal cortex decision making. And so no, but I think that's exactly like I think that nailed it because when I thought about this decision, obviously I had my very emotional statement around like his dream has to die for mine to live. Yes. Also, logic downside risk here. I'll have a story and I can always get my job back. Okay. And if I can't get that job back, I'll have other ones that will be available. Fine. And if I have a downgrading and some people think that I'm not as successful as them, okay. I'll not stop though. Mm-hmm. And so I think that demystifies a lot of the fears. I think that applies not just for entrepreneurial fears. I think it applies for any fear. Like I'm going to talk, like I can't tell this person this bad news. All right, let's play it out. I say something and then they're going to kill me? Probably not. So what's going to happen? I'll say these words and then they'll flip the table. They'll flick me off. They'll maybe just feel hurt and maybe they'll cry. Maybe they'll shout. Okay. If they shouted at me, what do I do? Like, and you just kind of play it out and you're like, okay, I think I have like most of these conditions prepared for. And then all of a sudden you can like have those things.
What you also said is that in the face of guaranteed misery, any option is better.
Yeah.
And like,
it's real.
You get to live once.
Yeah.
So like, why would guaranteed misery be better than any available option?
It's delay discounting. That's what's crazy is delay discounting happens both ways. Like, so like you set your alarm for 5 a.m. at night and you're like, I'm going to wake up at 5. But that's because you're delaying the pain of waking up. And when it's immediate, when I have to quit the job, like I'll quit my job tomorrow for 20 years. Right? And so it's just like we delay the fact that we're going to be miserable into the present to like we massively discount what a whole lifetime of misery would be.
Amen. When you're thinking about what to pursue, so say you've left the job, you've quit the thing, when you're thinking about what to pursue, how much of that is a decision derived from self-awareness? Because, someone will look at you now and be like, oh no, Alex did this, so I'm going to start a acquisition.com, or they'll say, I saw Steve Jobs did that thing with the computers. I'm going to start Apple. Yeah, right. Or Elon, I'm going to do the spaceships. Mm-hmm. How much do you have to know thyself to know what to pursue?
Man, this is a really good question. So there's a tweet that I love by Andrew Wilkinson, which is every entrepreneur ever, here's the winning number for my lottery ticket. And so it's like every entrepreneur will say, here's the winning lottery ticket, but it's like that drawing already happened.
Ah, okay, yeah.
right? And so like you can't cash that ticket in; it's already done. And so people say the word first principles, no one really knows what it means.